Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome to our channel and to today's video. I recently watched a video on Thinking Muslim with Sami Hamdi, which I believe is worthy of comment and expansion. There is no real introduction needed for Sheikh Sami Hamdi. He's very prominent in the Dawah sphere. His style of speaking moves you, and he discusses complex political affairs and links them to our responsibility as Muslims. If you haven't listened to him already, I do definitely urge that A, you subscribe to Thinking Muslim, and B, subscribe to any channel that hosts him as well, because his content is excellent. For those of you who may not be familiar with Sami Hamdi, he is a consultant by profession, advising businesses on the geopolitical situation so they can determine investment strategies. He's also an analyst and commentator for the rest of us. The video I chose from Thinking Muslim was done about a month ago following the attack by the Nazi Zionist supremacist evil state of Israel on Iran. The video covered a lot of ground, ranging from discussing the attack itself, Trump, Syria, the Houthis, Arab rulers, and our responsibility. So it covered a lot of ground. And as always, we have our resident scholar, Saudi dissident, thorn in the side of the regimes for many a decade, Professor Muhammad al-Masri. And we always find it important to entertain other people's points of view, especially in areas of great subjectivity like political analysis. I know the professor, for example, has been studying a wide area of political analysis for many decades. And often when we analyze a person's video, we just his depth of knowledge on history and on many instances of actually being eyewitness to many events provides a lot more context, which putting these two sources together could be like 10 kilograms of plutonium, inshallah. So it's well worth expanding upon. And basically, let's see how it goes. So inshallah, this video, it's called First Gaza, Now Tehran, The Calculus of Genocide with Sami Hamdi. Okay, I will play the first from the first minute and 7 seconds. So Muhammad Jalal was chairing the talk, as he's the main host for Thinking Muslim, and he asked the first question, which was about Iran, why now, and at certain points we'll invite the professor for comment, inshallah. Okay, so starting the first section.
Israelis launched what we probably see to be an audacious attack on Iran, hitting key Iranian nuclear installations, as well as some very key military personnel, in particular the chief of the IRGC, the chief of this really important, all-important military wing of the Iranians. So I suppose my first question to you is, why now?
I think that if you were to put yourself in the position of the Zionists and of the Americans sitting in the White House, 1 year ago, Iran was in control of Syria, it was in control of Lebanon, in Syria via the Assad regime, and in Lebanon via its proxy Hezbollah. Today, Hezbollah has been significantly diminished in terms of its capabilities, and the Assad regime has been toppled. Iran's arm is no longer as long as it used to be, and it's no longer as strong as it used to be. From the Zionist perspective, Iran now has its back to the wall. Iran now is unprecedentedly weak. This is the time now to really hit home the point and try to diminish Iran's capabilities in order to prevent it from ever being able to establish such a reach again. And I think the Zionist argument has been beyond just Netanyahu's desire for war. The Zionist argument has been that given that we now have this window of opportunity in the region to reshape the region, to reshape its borders, to bomb whoever we want without any consequence from any of the Muslim leaders or the like, why don't we continue to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities? Why don't we continue to bomb Iran's airports and military capabilities and render it into a country that is unable to do anything? And I think from the Israeli perspective, given that the Iranians have been trying to develop The Iranians say they're not trying to develop a nuclear weapon, but even if the Iranians were, on the basis that Israel should not be the only power allowed to have a nuclear weapon, given its antagonism towards the Iranians, the Israelis believe we have to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon, because if it has a nuclear weapon, then that compensates for Iran's inability to control Syria or Lebanon or any of these other regions. The Americans, however, are more hesitant, primarily because Israel doesn't have the power on its own to diminish Iran's capabilities. Israel is only able to attack a regional power with US support. Without US support, Israel does not survive in the region. Israel collapses within a few weeks. Israel is unable to stand against any of the regional powers. So Israel needs the US to be on board in order to attack the Iranians. And here is where there is division amongst the US powers. There are some who believe that this is the golden opportunity, that we should attack Iran and Iran should be diminishing its capabilities, the neocons and the hawks and the like. The other side, however, the MAGA, America First, and even other advisors in the past under the Democrat administration, argue that even if there is a possibility that they could permanently paralyze the Iranian military capabilities, it would cost a lot of money, a lot of American soldiers, and there is no guarantee that they would succeed. And given that context, it's unlikely that the American population would support such an endeavor to diminish Iran, primarily because for many in the American population, they've never met somebody from Iran who is necessarily antagonistic. Iran, many of them can't even point to it on a map, and many are unsure or unconvinced about any imminent danger that Iran might pose. And that's why we're seeing many on the American right, whether it's Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or even Matt Walsh and these others, who come out very heavily against these latest strikes that have taken place on the Iranians. In light of this difference, the question therefore is, why now? What brought these two conflicting ideas together, the idea of going against the Iranians and the American reluctance over the price they need to pay, has to do with Trump specifically. It's unclear to what extent Trump actually supported the initiative, or to what extent he planned it, or to what extent he's going to allow the Israelis to go. What is clear is that when Trump began the latest round of negotiations with the Iranians over a nuclear deal, he said initially that Iran has 60 days to agree to the deal. Today, Trump tweeted, is the 61st day. One of the reasons for Trump's frustration is that Iran is now digging its heels over a particular point that Trump has changed his mind on. In particular, the issue of how much enrichment is Iran allowed to have. How do you allow Iran to have a deal by which you afford it the right to enrich uranium for civilian purposes, but you limit the enrichment to prevent them from having a nuclear weapon? Initially, there was a certain percentage, whether it's 2 or 3%, I forget the exact number. But when Trump went to the region, expecting them to talk about Gaza, but found them instead talking about the Iranian threat and the need for security apparatus and the need for a guarantee of a NATO-style security agreement against the Iranians, Trump and Witkoff appeared to have returned from the region, and whatever they heard from the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Qataris, and the other countries or diplomats they spoke to, they changed the goalpost. They moved it from that 2 or 3% to 0%, something that is unrealistic to ask of any particular country. And all of the talks, the progress that was being made, the Iranians suddenly dug their heels in and they said, this is unrealistic of you to demand of us. But there was no indication when Iran began to stall in the negotiations that Trump would use force. And the proof is that the Omani foreign minister, Boussaidi, tweeted just yesterday or the day before, we're recording on the day just after the night that Israel attacked the Iranians. The Omani foreign minister said that on Sunday, the Sunday coming, that the latest round of talks was going to take place in Muscat, and there was no indication from Washington or Tehran that they wouldn't attend, suggesting that from Donald Trump's perspective, the Israelis would have presented an argument to him in saying, we want to go to war with Iran. He would have said no. We need to go to war with Iran and take advantage of their unprecedented weakness. Syria now is out of their hands. Lebanon now is out of their hands. Let's hit the Iranians. Trump said, I'm not spending the money. I'm not using American resources in order to attack. What I think the compromise was, Trump said, given the Iranians are stalling on the deal, the Iranians are negotiating with me as if they still have Syria and Lebanon. And the Iranians don't have the power or authority to debate with me on the demand that I've made regarding their enrichment. And if the Iranians think they can negotiate with me on this, let me show them what happens to them if they choose not to sign the deal. And I think what Trump has done is, if he's kept Israel on the leash and said to them, I'm the one preventing Israel from attacking, which is true. I'm going to loosen the leash a little bit. And the Israelis went in and killed a whole host of senior Iranian officials to say to the Iranians, you're not as strong as you think you are. This negotiations is not between equals. I am saying to you, I'm giving you a way out, a way of peace. You don't negotiate with me on this. I'm giving you the paper. You have to sign that particular paper. What has been devastating for the Iranians is not just the diminishing of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah, which has come out and said, we will not be retaliating on behalf of the Iranians. We will not initiate an attack on the Israelis because they don't want to have the same bombardment that came beforehand. The militias in Syria, the Iranian militias, now no longer operate in the way they used to under Ahmad al-Shara's government. What's been devastating for the Iranians is the precision of the Israeli strikes. They killed Ali Shamkhani, one of the senior negotiators on the nuclear deal, one of the most senior members of parliament in Tehran. They killed, I think, about 5 scientists, senior scientists associated with the nuclear program. They killed some of the senior leaders of the IRGC, of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. They've been able to kill people who are so senior in what deemed to be precision strikes, which suggests that the intelligence that the Israelis have on the Iranians is something the Iranians never knew the Israelis had. There's been an intelligence leak. More than that, the Israelis are publishing videos that suggest that a lot of the drone strikes from inside happened from inside Iran, meaning Israel has been able to gather the capabilities to be able to penetrate Iran itself and then launch the drones and then go and attack these people in their homes. And the proof that the Iranians were caught unguarded is that even as Trump announced that he would withdraw officials from the region and the US ambassador indicated there was an attack coming, the Iranians did not believe Trump would attack them. The Iranians believed that Trump's no war policy, Trump was bluffing, Trump was flexing. And the proof is Ali Shamkhani, who probably should have expected he would be on the target list, was sleeping at home. A lot of these people were found sleeping at home, indicating they did not perceive that the threat was genuinely imminent, suggesting that whatever assurances they got from Trump, they believed that Trump would not allow the Israelis to do so. And this is what leads me to conclude that while the Israelis are hoping that this becomes an all-out war, Trump may well have decided that I will give this bone to the Israelis. You can go and attack the Iranians, but I don't want an all-out war that ruins my deal. And Trump's tweet has suggested if they come back to the dialogue table, he will keep the leash on the Israelis and prevent them from attacking the Iranians. And more than that, the US ambassador to Turkey tweeted today in a very ironic way. He tweeted the famous quote of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, in which Muawiyah has a famous saying, if a lash works instead of the sword, I'll use the lash. And if my tongue works and I don't need to use the lash, I'll use my tongue. And if all that remains between me and my brother is a hair, then I will do everything to make sure that hair doesn't break. Suggesting no matter how bad things get between us, we call Sharat Muawiyah, no matter how bad things get between us, there's always the room for dialogue. The US ambassador to Turkey tweeted today that the hair of Muawiyah is there, it exists between Iranians and the Americans, suggesting that this might be a one-off, provided the Iranians come back to the table and they agree to Trump's terms. Before I walked in here, I saw a report. Trump tweeted or wrote on Truth Social or whatever social media platform he uses. He said the Iranians are now talking to me. I'm in communication with the Iranians, suggesting the Iranians are saying to Trump, what can we do to de-escalate? How can we negotiate around this? But the biggest devastation for Iran is, whereas before they could retaliate with some missiles or the like, their military capabilities have been so diminished, it's unlikely they will be able to retaliate in the way that they would want. And there is now a debate taking place on Iranian social media, which says, should we be retaliating in the way that we would like? Or is this perhaps time in which we retreat, we rebuild our strength, we make some sort of temporary peace, and we rebuild for another day until we're strong enough to actually engage and actually retaliate to the Americans?
Sorry, that's just an advert. Okay, so let me skip through it. 26.
More detail.
Obviously, he's recalling that after the attack immediately, I think Shamkhani has survived and so on. And some people who are presumed dead survived, but this is accidental. That they didn't get him is because you attack someone, there's no certainty that you will kill him. Yeah, okay. I think he's doing the usually Western style and the usual geopolitical analysis. I would say journalistic style analysis. The problem is that I think.
I mean, it might be premature to comment on it now because he does go into a lot more areas, and he has later on. You'll see his words of encouragement from Islamic's perspective. What's interesting is because he goes through the issue of Iran, he goes through Iran and how it's been operating, whether it's a paper tiger. He goes through the issue of the Shia crescent. So there's a lot of stuff that he discusses. That's where I'm keen to get an analysis on because obviously.
No, but even in that here, there's some silent assumption that why now? Why now? Because an opportunity came because the action inside Iran is being in preparation for years, and they have preceded by other actions like the viruses which damaged the centrifuges, etc. etc. That's going on for decades, and Israel was rampaging against Iraq until Iraq was finished, and then they are rampaging against Iran since then. That's standard. For Israel, any nuclear power nearby is a life-threatening. And they even threatening Pakistan. They were about to attack Pakistan. And they were planning to attack it together with India in the time of Indira Ghandi. But miraculously, Indira Ghandi was assassinated a few days before the attack was supposed to take place. So it needed to be cancelled, assassinated by Sikh. That's a divine grace. Nobody planned that. Another one, they were planning to do it in the time of the Haqq. And the Haqq came to know that, and he sent a message to Israel, listen, we have nuclear weapons, we'll bomb you with nuclear weapons. Forget about that. That's allegedly has been said, whatever the case may be. So that's for Israel, that's a matter of life and death. It's an existential question that they will not allow anyone nearby to have capability of resisting Israeli dominance and Israeli threat. Everyone must be forced into submission and going into the knees. And if necessary, it would be worked and so on. But I think the problem with all these analyses, most Muslims and most people in the world, their analysis is usually start from a recent time. They don't go to the root, especially with the Muslim world, you have to go to the root where the whole situation started like that. The whole situation started, at least politically, a matter of carving countries, establishing new entities, with the First World War. I'm just quickly going through that. And before that, the British were able to get the Sharif on board because the Sharif tried to reform the Khilafah Uthmaniyya to be in communication with Abdul Hamid and others, with the so-called Khulafa, thinking he would be able to reform and also to resist the movement to turn the Arabs into Turks. That movement was initiated by some non-Muslim Turks who are Turanic extremists. They are essentially Turkish Nazis. Nazism and extreme nationalism was the fashion in Europe in the late 19th century, which culminated in the Young Turks and so on movement, but also in Germany in the Nazis and so on, and led to these wars. But they came to power in the time of Abdul Majid I and did the so-called reforms and so on, which Turkey lost its Islam characteristics. It became just a vicious nationalist Nazi-style country. And the Sharif was trying to fix that, but he could not. It may be simple-minded, maybe he good-hearted. And the British told him, no, this regime is tyrannical and so on. You should have a Khilafah Arabiya, which is democratic, we support you, we'll help you removing the Turkish oppression. Imagine the British saying that, imagine. And he bought it. He swallowed the bait. Anyway, that's before that. So the war came. It turns out clearly what they wanted is to dismember the Muslim world, reenact the Crusades. Allegedly, Allenby, when he entered Jerusalem, he said towards Salah ad-Din, listen, Salah ad-Din, now the Crusades have ended. So still remember Salah ad-Din from time of King Richard Lionheart. Maybe this is just a fabrication, but it reflects clearly what the people deep in their heart have. And they split the whole area between them. No regime in the area at the time can be regarded as neither Islamic maybe nominally Saudi Arabia, nominally, but mutilated form of Islam, Wahhabism, at least, and Afghanistan maybe, those were Dark Age Islam, but very backward resemblance of Islam, let us say it. We cannot call it straight kufr, but not far away from that. Backward, ignorant, and so on. And the rest were clearly secular and ruling with Western laws and so on. These regimes, most of them, actually all of them, there was no independent regime of any significance. Maybe Afghanistan was a little bit independent, secluded, far away. Nobody bothered very much about Afghanistan. It's a landlocked country. It was a monarchy at the time. Maybe that one, but it's insignificant. It's irrelevant. India is under occupation. Both there was no Pakistan, no Bangladesh yet, no Sri Lanka, and so on, under British rule. And the rest of the Muslim world, all essentially occupied. None of them is independent. And even those who gained some nominal independence, were under protectorate rule. Even Saudi Arabia was actually that's refused as an Islamic domain because it was under British protectorate according to the Darien Khatif Treaty. So that's the situation. If we see that, we see that the regimes from day one, from their inception and creation, although bin Saud was before, and he's the heir of a state which was established in the 18th century and so on, but that was gone and forgotten. And Najd was under the control of al-Rashid, who are associated with the Turks and the Khilafah Uthmaniyya nominally. But he's really purely a British implant. So the people should not call it Saudi Arabia, should call it Azzizi Arabia or something, not Saudi Arabia, Azzizi Arabia essentially. But that's the name which has been adopted and is known to the people. It's not a Saudi state, it's an Azzizi state, it's Abdul Aziz state. That he's genealogically from Al Saud, he has nothing to do really with the program or the ideas of Al Saud, who were Khawarij, but they were independent. They were not created by the British. Okay. So after the First World War, that's the situation. Full occupation, movements and parties were established, usually influenced from far away or directed by the British and the MI6. The American went back into isolation. They have little effect. They have some effect. For example, they sent a committee to do research about Palestine to scrutinize the issue of the possibility of establishing a Jewish state, and the committee came with a damning report that establishing a Jewish state would be catastrophic for the area, catastrophic for the Arab, and will cause instability for the area and bloodshed, which nobody knows how it will ever end. So that report is available, but it's somewhere in some drawer in America until now. And but Britain opened the floodgates, started establishing the Israeli entity. They encouraged the establishment of the Hagana, of Ergon, and so on. Although openly they claim that these are terrorists, and some of these did do some bombing, like the King David Hotel and so on. And the British until now say these are terrorist organization. But this is a simple-minded trick. Only simpleton will believe that the British are not behind that. The MI6 work this way. MI6 will easily accept that someone will bomb a hotel with some British diplomats there and they get killed, so that they play the game that they are against these terrorists and so on, and can appease the Arabs and play the game. If someone does not recognize that the British Empire is capable of such an atrocity, he is such a simple-minded guy, is beyond redemption. So after the war, they gave up Palestine. Actually, their warships were helping the Hagana, which then became later the IDF, in expelling and killing the Palestinians by bombing from the sea. There are eyewitnesses who saw the British battleships and a destroyer firing against Palestinian positions. So much for the terrorist Hagana and so on, according to the British in the public media. So that's it. That's what has happened. But they didn't acknowledge Israel first. Even the Americans did not acknowledge first. The first one to acknowledge was the Soviet Union, because the Jews were living there. Most of them are socialists, and they were living in so-called kibbutz, which is like a model commune. Remind everyone of the Paris Commune, and which people lived in a socialist or communist life. So based on that and other issues, obviously, the Russian never loved Arabs and Muslims. And and being atheist, they never delivered Islam or any religion, and being still culturally orthodox, they never delivered Islam. So, and this is the same until now with Putin. We'll come to Putin later. So things developed. We have the entity there implanted, and you have the regimes accepting that and secretly cooperating with the British and so on. There was no public normalization, there was no diplomatic relation, all of these games, because they knew the people would not accept that it will lead to massive bloodshed. So pretend to be hostile to Israel. No difference between Abdul Nasser, who claimed that he's anti-Israel, in reality he has relation with Israel secretly. Some of the records and the information is now coming these days in the daylight, being leaked by the Egyptian intelligence, most likely by order of Sisi, so that he tells everyone, listen, if you accuse me to be an agent, your beloved Abdul Nasser was an agent before me, so it's just shut up. All of us are agents. So that's the past. And it continued. At least one entity is constructed specifically to be guardian of Israel. That's Jordan. When the Sharif noticed that he has been taken for a ride by the British, he rebelled. His son Ali, the oldest son, stayed on his side. The two other sons, Faisal and Abdullah, decided to continue with the British in hope that they will get some gifts and prizes. And they gave Abdullah, they constructed him the first one emirate of East Jordan, and then later they promoted him to a king, and they developed him an excellent army led by Glob Pasha. That's a British general. I think he was brigadier general, or he was a major general, Glob Pasha. And the Secret Service is just a branch of the MI6. So it has a powerful army initially. Later, developed later, obviously. Initially, it was emirate and a kingdom. And it was told from day one, listen, your job is to be protector or guardian of Israel. Your job, anyone crossing from east to west, the River Jordan, your job is to shoot them in the back. And anyone crossing from west to east, back, also kill him if he's a Palestinian. Because some Palestinians were crossing over, just harvesting some olives and some oranges. I know some people. I was in Germany, tell you, Wallah, I was going there just to get some of my oranges from our plantation. And then we got shot us. When we crossed, we shot us in the back. When we survive and come back, we shot us in the front, on the face. So that's the function of Jordan. Other countries, they pretended to be hostile to Israel, no peace, no one, etc. Until Saddam did the Camp David and so on. They condemned him publicly, but secretly who financed him? We know that. King Fahad is the one who, at the time, he was not king yet, but he was the actual king, really the one in command, financed him. And he told him openly, you do that, we'll condemn you publicly, but in due course, slowly we'll get Egypt as the major Arab country in the fold, and the Arab League, which will be transferred somewhere, will come back to Egypt. Don't worry. And that's exactly what has happened. So that was what's going on. So that's the situation. In the late 70s, some events happened which shook the area. One minor event inside Saudi Arabia, that's Juhayman and siege of the Haram. That is locally, which shocked Fahad, who was going in secularization with high speed, to push on the brake. No, we have to go slow now. There's still some rejection. There's some people rejection Westernization and modernization. So we have to brake, we have to slow down. Otherwise, the Westernization is going at high speed. Secondly, the Soviet Union committed a major mistake because in Afghanistan, the cousin of the king made a coup d'etat, but he has the mentality or the vision of the world such a way that he abolished the monarchy and established a republic, and he was the first president. And he was more of a revolutionary type initially, but then when you get power and you enjoy power, then you start getting corrupted unless you have really high ideal and you are really a believer in that what you do. He may be a nationalist and so on, but he doesn't have that deep belief in democracy and republicanism. So he started building a relation to America back and forsaken the people who participated with him in the coup d'etat, which turned the monarchy into a republican, mostly communist parties, Parsham and Khalq. Not Mujahid al-Khalq of Iran, Khalq means Sha'b, people's party, and Parsham. Hizb Party. These are two communist parties, leftist parties. He turns against them, but they will succeed in making the coup d'etat and killed him and took power and asked for help from the Soviet Union. So Soviet Union entered. It was a trap. It was a good set American trap to take revenge on the Soviet Union for that what has happened in Vietnam. And they succeeded after 10 years. This is an important event, but the most important event is that what nobody expected was the revolution in Iran, led by Imam Khomeini. All indication really shows and testifies that Khomeini is really an Islamist, not a sectarian. Because Ali Khamenei now is more a sectarian than a Muslim. He's more a Shi'i than a Muslim. What's the difference? You could be a Shi'i Muslim, you could be a Sunni Muslim, but you could be a Muslim and then Shi'i, a Muslim and then Sunni. That's the meaning of being a real Islam. Islam is the dominant thing in his mind. Number one, and he's internationalist. He is not a nationalist. He is not having racism or Aryan supremacy, because the Iranian are Aryan, by the way. They're cousin of the German and the cousin of the Brahmin supremacist in India. Yeah, they have this genealogy. And one of the titles of the Shah before that was Arya Meher, the beloved of the Aryan. We're talking about nationalism here. And his father, Rida Pahlavi, the one who established the kingdom, the new kingdom, because before that there was another one, the Qajar or something like that, and they were gone. And actually, Rida Pahlavi wanted to have a republic. He was a big admirer of Ataturk, so he has nothing to do with Islam or Muslim. But then the condition worked such a way that told him, no, we don't want a republic, we want a kingdom. And he became a king, Rida Pahlavi, and still he followed the same policies like Ataturk, tried to secularize the country by force, prohibiting hijab and doing things like that. His son is in the same way, and their title is Arya Meher, the beloved of the Aryan. So Khomeini is definitely not Aryan, not Aryan supremacist, not Kurdish supremacist, not Median supremacist, not Persian supremacist, nothing. He is an internationalist, he's a humanist and Islamic. Essential. His madhab is Shi'i, but his direction, his devotion is to Islam. And he may be himself of Iranian origin. I don't know which ethnicity he belongs. Is he Adari? Ali Khamenei is Adari. The Azerbaijani are essentially Turkic. They are Turkic. They're cousins of the Tatar and the Mongols. They are not Aryan. But I don't know about Khomeini. His appearance look like, for example, he may be Persian or maybe Afghani or something else, Sistani or something. Allahu Alam. But anyway, that's not his allegiance, not his direction. And that was a shock, because the revolution succeeded, and the Americans were with the revolution against the Shah, because the Shah, many people think the Shah is an implant to America. It's not true. The Shah is an agent of the British. The problem in all these analyses that people do not recognize that the world power of the time past, Britain, was struggling and fighting to keep the world dominance. They failed after Suez. So they changed the cover. They focused on becoming a banking oligarchy and becoming like a virus. So in America, we have British wing, the banking oligarchy, mainly. And they are the one now acting British. Most American, or all Americans do not know that, except a minority of people called the group of LaRouche. He recognized that. And he called them openly the British. He called them openly the British. So they were in control. The oil is in their hand. Everything in Iran in their hand. But Americans have tried to, the deep state in America, the military industrial company, the American nationalists tried to control Iran by giving weapons, by giving F-14, by opening the gate. They gave them a nuclear program with enrichment, everything. All that started in time with the Shah. All that started. And when the revolution came, why they gave that? In an attempt to get more deep inside the country and get the country under their control. Exactly like Israel. Israel, by the way, until 73, until the war of 73, little before, they don't have even almost no piece of weapon from America. All of it was French and British. Later on, the American gave them F-4 Phantom, gave that slowly, bit by bit, they penetrated in the army and tried to get more control, more. But they never succeeded to be really the commanding force. Just the opposite. The Israeli, the Mossad, which is a branch of the MI6, because they established by MI6 originally, these one succeeded inside America, benefiting from the simple-mindedness of the American politician, and the Americans do not have a world politics tradition for the whole world. They have the moral doctrine. They were focused on the Western Hemisphere. Now they get out on the world. They need interaction and direction. Who gives them direction and interaction? The banking oligarchy and the Zionists. And they benefited from the fact that the Christian Zionists are an important minority in America. At that time, they were already a minority, but a big minority. Now they are 30%. They were at the time close to 50%. And they penetrated that. So actually, instead of America by the military industrial complex, the American nationalists, the MAGA, that make America great again now, the real American, instead they are controlling Israel. Israel controls them through these channels, through the lobby and so on. So it's a very dialectic, complicated relation. Unless you see that interwoven in that way, you will not understand what's going on. It's so deep now, that developed in such a way that's almost impossible this entangle without a world war or a catastrophe of excessive proportion. So that's how they tried that in Iran, and there's very good information and indication that they ordered the military commander who are depending upon American weapons, because they did spend considerable amount of grooming of the Iranian military, that they should not step in against the demonstration and they should not support the Shah. With the result that the guys got hung after that, because the revolution did not forgive them in any case. And many of them were hung. I still remember the picture of score of them being dead after being hung with the rope and their neck. So America strikes since that time to control Iran and get it in its camp. And there's a wing in Iran, the remainder of the old administration, but they could call the deep state, because Khomeini is a popular movement. And he has to rely on the existing administration and so on. And he has to struggle. For example, Qutb, which was the foreign office minister, has been found to be in communication with the American without permission of the higher authority or Khomeini. And that's the reason he was tried and received the death penalty as an American agent. And that's the Minister of Foreign Affairs and other people like that. So he was also struggling, trying to eliminate these, but they are deep entrenched and they still persisted. Khomeini did not live long enough, and they did not get the time to clean inside because he got busy with the war with Iraq. After that, this guy came, who is not really Islamist, is more sectarian, and not really internationalist, is more, but is a little bit revolutionary, not completely counter-revolutionary, but the other section of the state, foreign office, the presidency, part of the Security Council, and so on. Maybe only the committee of the experts, which chooses is mostly clergy and so on, but does not mean necessarily that they are revolutionary, because being a clergy in Iran or as a Shia or in Islam or woman does not mean that you are so revolutionary or that you understand what the world is going. Most of our clergy, unfortunately, are very simple and limited-minded, and very ritual and formal. Only few have the revolutionary mindset. So you cannot trust that even this experts committee which elects the Rahbari, the Murshid, the guide, that they are really revolutionary, all of them. They may be persuaded and influenced by the cunning and the guys who are from the more nationalistic, more pro-American wing. So since then, after the passing of Khomeini, until now, these various factions are fighting. Outside the state apparatus, we have a very strong anti-Islamic Republic group like Mujahideen Haqq. And these have been originally like Islamic leftists. They are not atheists. There was the atheist Toda party that's essentially eliminated. But the remainder joined Mujahideen Haqq. And they are ferociously mullah regime. That's one. And willing to cooperate with the devil. They are cooperating with America. We have some nationalistic movements, some other Azerbaijani movements, some Belushi movement, and so on, some Arab nationalist movement and Ahwaz, and so on. So all of these currents are there, making the direction of Iran is not very clear. And most policies defined by the National Security Council, the Supreme Council, where the decision of war and peace is made together with the Murshid, with the Rahbari as a head. Most of these are scattered in these various directions. You cannot really rely that they are really revolutionary and they're having an Islamic vision than the reality. They're more inclined toward now. Besides the attack of Saddam and the war, 80-year war, which cost Iran over 1 million people killed and so on, caused the Iran to have a complex that if they attack in their own area, they will suffer badly. So they want to have a buffer zone. They want, if anyone wants to attack Iran, we should have the battle outside our domain. This is a selfish point of view. You expect such a point of view from nationalistic governments like this system, but not from an Islamic system. Not from Islamic system, unfortunately, but that's the point of view. That's the reason when America invaded Iraq, they had not such a great difficulty because the government there was mostly put forward by Shia who were in exile in London and Israel, especially in London. I know many of them personally. And they came on the American tanks. So Iran, if it would be really Islamic and revolutionary, they would say, no, we don't acknowledge this government. We cooperate with the Iraqi people. We let them go to visit the imams and so on, back and forth. We give them a visa on the border, but we don't acknowledge this government. Instead, they acknowledge this government and have very good relation. The justification is that one day we'll be able to expel the Americans. That's what they told me earlier. I was discussing with them about that. I'm not an outsider. I am an insider in this affair, especially the Iraqi affair. And I discussed with some of the mashayikh. They said, no, we'll take over. So I said, you are mistaken. You'll never be able to take over. The American will be like a beast next door, and they will bite you one day. Don't do that. But they have their own way. Why is that? Because they want, if there's any fight, it will be in Iraq, not in Iran. That's the way, twisted mentality, that you protect yourself by having the wars outside, someone else fighting, not you fighting. And it's the worst way of self-defense, of defending yourself. That's not the right way. Neither Islamically, even tactically and militarily. Anyway, the same happened in Syria, when the people started moving, and the regime there. By the way, the regime there, I'll give maybe later if an opportunity that Hafez Assad and his son later, and the Ba'ath party there, these guys have nothing to do with Islam. They have nothing to do with Shiism. That's a family who want to have power, and they have been adopted. The uncles and aunties of Hafez Assad were essentially agents and prostitutes of the French government. When the French government is gone, Vichy government fell in the Second World War, the British took over and they turned into the British and became agents of the oligarchy until today. And they succeeded in a very, especially Hafez Assad was a master of deceit. He succeeded in getting the Soviet Union to have a base in Latakia. He persuaded them, we are socialists, you need a base here. This way you can control the Mediterranean. The Latakia base was offered by Hafez to the Soviet Union at the time in the late 70s. Why? From his point of view, if he had the Soviet Union, he had the protection. He had excellent relation to the Shah, by the way. When the Shah is gone, he flipped over and made excellent relation with the Khomenei. The Iranian, until now, they are unable to see through that. Until now, they are not able to see through that. And even many of the brother even thinks that Syria is lost. Syria is lost long ago. It's a trap, because in the involvement of Iran in Syria, again, under the motto, we should have a strategic strength there. So if the battle happens, it will happen there. Again, a fundamental mistake. What was the function of Bashar? Because that's in Bashar time, and the Ba'ath party and the old guard. What was the function of having these? the function of having these is to suppress the people with a sectarian card. We don't care about that. We don't care about sectarian or sectarian. We play the sectarian card. We suppress the people, keep the power, and our relation with the banking oligarchy, that's Britain, essentially, behind various veils, and directly through that, the back doors to Israel. In that, we pass to Israel the information about the Revolutionary Guard. We pass the information where Qasem Soleimani is going back and forth, and that's the reason he was killed, by information given from the palace, the presidential palace in Damascus, and the same with the leaders of the embassy bombing, our consulate bombing, in which people were killed, which led to True Promise 1, is also by information sent from the palace, Republican palace, to Israel. They are friends of Israel completely, and Israel played the game. We are against the tyranny of Hafez Assad. We'll have the Syrian people. As they say, talk is cheap. You can talk at all you want, but action shows clearly. So this became almost like a death trap for Iran. Iran spent there about 30 billion support and help and weapons, which are lost and gone, and 30 billion loans. They will never be paid back. 60 billion are gone. These 60 billion should have been spent in Iran. We show the folly and the misunderstanding of the reality, that you think that you can protect yourself by having your enemies fighting against you outside somewhere. That will never happen, and never happened in the past, never happened in the future. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. Maybe for a world power like America, you have bases there and you have to fight the bases there, but you have to have bases with significant soldier and ammunition. Just supporting a regime there, which you don't know what's the real belief and deep heart situation, that's a question. So they were, and he offered for them, you can send weapons to Hezbollah. Challenge is over, there's no problem. In return, they protected the regime and kept it. And when there was problems in 2015, many people do not know that. It came to almost a break between Iran and Bashar in 2015 or early 16. I don't remember now exactly. And there was a coup d'etat in the palace against Bashar. The beloved Russian came in and saved him and controlled the air. So the Iranian president since then is really a loss. They should have withdrawn, they should have had a solution, but they were fixated on the situation. They don't want to admit they are mistaken and withdraw. Until even before 7th of October, the year before 7th of October, Bashar was clearly very hostile. He did not cooperate with Ansarullah. He closed their embassy. He did so many things, and still they swallowed down and still covered and talk about the resistance front. Syria is not a resistance front. Syria is a backstabber. I mean, the Syrian regime. I'm not talking about the people. So the people are deactivated. They have nothing to say. So this is the background. If you have this background, then you see what's going on. The moment Saddam is gone, the danger of Saddam, because Iraq is a considerable entity and with capabilities, and Saddam is very ferocious and have really the intention to achieve greatness and establish strength. And also he's really genuinely hostile to Israel, because he's genuinely an Arab nationalist. And maybe not a good Muslim, maybe he's not a Muslim at all, but he's definitely anti-Israel on Arab nationalist ground. So Saddam is gone. The nuclear program has been deactivated. There, now the next target should be Iran. And they are working on it continuously. But the situation did not give an opportunity to attack. When it was clear that Iran is not serious and is not willing to fight really and take the initiative, when it was clear on the 7th of October. When the 7th of October came, everyone was exposed clearly. How it was exposed? When the 7th of October happened, the Nasser of America made the biggest historic bluff. They sent the aircraft carrier. Biden stood and said, we don't want to hide in the war. Meaning, let us slaughter the Gaza and Palestinians. We annihilate them. Don't interfere. The house nigger, what's his name? The Secretary of Defense, the black guy, what was his name? I don't remember his name.
Colin Powell, back in the days, you mean?
No. That one just yesterday, just last year.
I can't recall.
Phillips or something. Anyway, don't. Blinken, don't. Everyone don't. And the bluff, everyone peed in his pants, except the people in Gaza and Ansarullah. He's the only one who did not pee in their pants. Everyone bought the bluff. And Iran genuinely bought the bluff. And the Americans are not stupid. Yeah, they may be cowboys. They are not sophisticated like British. They don't know how to stab in the back in the most sophisticated way. They do, and they wish to do it all the time. But most of the time, they do it in a dumb way, like what they did with the nuclear attack of Iran. But they noticed that Iran is not as strong as we thought. What we mean strong internally. They are not willing to confront. They are ready to go one step back. The moment your enemy of this type, which is an existential enemy like Israel, and another who is also an ideological and historic enemy like the United States of America, notice that you bought their bluff and you are willing to step one step back, then as any bully, he will bully further, so you go one step more. And that's exactly what has happened. Hezbollah at the beginning made the good decision. We just go support until see how things develop. Later on, there was a discussion. Should we go full scale? They should have gone full scale because they know also that they said clearly, and also their leader currently said, we know that Israel want to annihilate us one day. But who is this one day? When is this one day? And the decision, now we go with it. They neglected to think that Israel is a mortal, essential enemy. It will get any opportunity to strike, and the Israelis kept postponing until they managed things in place, the pager affair and the wireless affair in place, and they struck at that moment. And after that, they attacked, not before. In that time, there were many opportunities for Hezbollah to say no. The International Court ruled it this way. We support that by going full scale. Another occasion, we go full scale. Another occasion, and we ignore the advice and the pressure from Iran. It's clear that there is advice and pressure from Iran. It's clear. There's no doubt there is a pressure from Iran. Because it was pressure on Yemen also. But Yemen rejected. They said, no, we know what we are doing. Care about your own situation. We will not know how to manage our situation. With the result, the pager affair happened, the strike came, and Hezbollah received considerable damage. I hope it's not mortal. I think they recovered. I think they are capable of doing something substantial. Provided they overcome the mentality of being ready to go back one step, to be bullied. You have to overcome the bullied one mentality. I accept to be a bullied one. You have to overcome. That's the weakness. It's not you need preparation. You need materials. What Hezbollah had before the pager affair, if they struck first, Garant, who has already resigned or was about to resign at the time, said, if Hezbollah started when we were busy with Gaza, before we get 2 or 3 divisions at the border, they sent 3 divisions. That's about 40,000 soldiers on the border of Lebanon. And they were unable to defeat Hezbollah, by the way. If they entered in Galilee, we would be fighting them in Haifa, at least, possibly in Tel Aviv. And that's true. But nobody tested it. The only one who tested it is Hamas and Jihad. And until now, they are fighting. Now they are in another phase of fighting. Who else tested it within the limited means they have? Yemen. And they chased an armada. One of the biggest armada in history. 2 aircraft carriers or 3. All chased away. All ships set away. Several countries. Coalition. What's called is what is prosperity governments. Chased away. Because they are firm, they know what they want, and they are not willing to be bullied. I refuse to be the victim of bullying. That's all what you need. This is the strength you need. So I think if we see that background and think about it thoroughly, then we see the problem of Iran is not, they don't have a missile force. They have a formidable missile force. No doubt about that. The problem is that they did not get any opportunity to strike first. And they can. They have plenty of opportunity. When I witness, for example, the attack against the consulate, this Iran, land, they attacked us. We attacked back. We have the right. Just inform the United Nations. They inform the United Nations. But because they are afraid from the early bullying of Biden and so on, what they did, through intermediary in Oman, negotiated how to do it, how to balance it. They said, no balancing. At that time, I remember a commentator say, the right course of action to do such a barrage that half of Israel and capabilities are destroyed. They have 2 refineries, destroy one completely. They have 4 or 5 power stations, destroy 2 of them. They have military airports, 5, attack all 5 if you can. Military headquarters, Ministry of Defense, research centers, all of these things, attack them. These are military, you attack all of them. But the essential lively, why attack only half? Because at that stage, you don't want to get them to a level, because I know Iran has the capability to destroy almost everything. But if you do that, then Israel may be forced to the Samson solution, to the nuclear device. But if you destroy only half, they will be hesitant. That's the only purpose why you stick to the first half only the first half. It should be clear. But if you are having the mentality, the bully can bully me, and I step back a little bit and avoid being hit, you are mistaken. You don't avoid being hit this way. The only way is that what the thugs in the street of Makkah say, give him a knee, meaning hit him with your knee in his balls, then he will collapse. That's thug philosophy, which works always. The only way with the bully is to kick him with your knee in his balls, and he falls. That's it. If you step back, he will bully more, become more ferocious. It doesn't work otherwise. With countries, with organizations, with parties, with philosophy, with everything. Don't accept to be bullied, unless you cannot. But you can. Yemen showed that they can, with 1 rocket a day, 1 missile a day, and a few drones. That's all that they can. That was enough. With 2 aircraft carriers and an armada. Show us. They failed. Iran can much more. Iran can 100 times than what Yemen did. 100 times. They could have finished that. But they until now, they have no imagination that Israel can be erased. They think it is there to stay. At least, according to what Khomenei said in some talks some years back, in the year 2040, Israel will disappear. 2040. Still 15 years. No. The slogan should be, Israel should have been gone in the year 1956, but we neglected. In 1967, but we failed. In 1973, but we were idiots. In 1982 in Lebanon, but we blundered. That should be the motto. It should have been long ago gone. Not in 2040 or 2020 or 2030. No. Don't think any future day. It should have been long ago. Long ago. But we failed. We were in error. We were weak. We were disorganized. We were led by thugs. Whatever it is, it should have been. Don't fix a day in the future. You think that's the only day we should work. No. It should have worked in time past. And it could have worked in time past if we did not have such agents ruling us. So that's the problem with the Iran. Honestly, that's the problem. Like even until recently, now I have the benefit, obviously, of listening to many things after the brother is recording immediately after the attack. The attacks, I know how far away they are, but 3 weeks, roughly 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, we have so many. Just yesterday, Badish can say he still believes there's a possibility of negotiating with America. Some people say he's saying that just to fool the Americans. The Americans are not fooled. Don't fool with this. You fool with something else, substantial. No. Either he's really seriously, mentally retarded in matter of politics, or he's having a defeatist mentality which cannot be recovered, will never be able to confront America. So we have to step back. If that's your mentality, then you will never be able to defeat America. But the reality, you can. Example, Yemen. Example, Afghanistan. Example, Saigon. You can. But you have to pay a price for it. You have to be ready to fight and lose people and bleed. You cannot get it for you. And you have to do it. Not wait for bombing to happen in Syria or in Iraq to save you. That doesn't work this way. You have to by yourself to jump in the field and sacrifice. It's great if the others participate with you, but you have to be the one. If you want to protect Iran, for example, and you are in Syria for this purpose, then you should be the one fighting and the Syrian fight with you. Not they fighting in behalf of you. That's not this way. Unfortunately, that's what's happening. You see it. Well, now you see it. Now you see it. Now you see it.